The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. Get up to 1K in a pause match with Mark Fantasy with the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Wednesday night, August 6th, around 11 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into a new tournament, actually. It's time to get into Cincinnati, as we have an event starting tomorrow. Weird calendar for the ATP, because, of course, Toronto hasn't finished yet. So we actually do have a pretty weird scenario where you're going to be starting a tournament before the previous one ends. But either way, that's what's going to happen. Of course, Shelton and Fritz are playing right now. But the point is, you do have an event starting before the actual final takes place tomorrow. So we're going to break down the outrights and the quarters, etc. But before we get into any of that, we will not recap the lock and dog plays because we are still waiting for the plays to finish. Yes, we did end up losing. We ended up losing one of the plays. We'll wait to see how the Shelton match ends up wrapping up. Then we'll group all those together for the actual next episode for the Cincy final. For the Toronto final. The point is I'm going to try to keep it consistent. So instead, I'm not going to talk about the men's. However, I do have some time to kill before I get into the Cincinnati preview, so might as well get into what happened with the women's matches that took place on Wednesday. So I'll save the Rybakina one for later. You saw Osaka, who ended up beating Towson in straight sets. Good for her. She's had a pretty rough go over the years, but she was able to win. Choked away a break lead in the second set twice, and then eventually was able to survive. Fought off 2-set points. Got the job done 9-7 in the breaker. So good for her as she goes back to the final, and it might be the first title that she's won in a long time. So we'll see what happens. But either way, nice job by Osaka to win in straight sets against Towson. Towson kind of no-showed the first set and a half, then woke up, but by that point it was a bit too late. So nice job by Osaka to deal with the adversity after kind of choking away a break lead twice and then winning anyway. Now, that takes me into whatever the hell the other match was between Boku and Rybakina. So, as some of you might know, if you follow me on Twitter, I did compile a ranking list of the ATP clowns in order and the WTA clowns in order. I had Rybakina on there, up a set and a break, and I believe I put her 5th on the list, somewhere around there. I got to bump her up again, because damn, Rybakina is an all-time choker. I know that she did win Wimbledon, congratulations, a long time ago. It's a good thing she won, because, oh my God, she's an all-time choker. What an embarrassing loss by Rybakina. I did mention in the episode yesterday when I briefly talked about the women's matches, I thought that Rybakina would go up early and potentially choke, and she did. And she choked even, I'd say, more strongly than I thought she was going to. So, to get into the actual breakdown, you saw Rybakina win the first set, 6-1. You ended up seeing her fall behind early in the second set. They eventually got back on serve, and Rybakina got broken to lose the second set. So you're going into the third set. Rybakina is still a massive favorite. Up a break in the third set. She's up 5-3. So she's serving for the match at 5-4, has a match point, and you know what? She ends up choking it. And then, to make matters worse, she broke back to serve for the match again and got broken to love and then lost in a breaker. So she served for the match twice and choked. Classic Rybakina. I got nothing else to add. I got no notes. It was a phenomenal choke job by her. Mboku, phenomenal run in her home country of Canada. We'll see if she can finish it off by beating Osaka in the final. But damn, Rybakina is an insane choker. I got nothing else to add. Once again, I put her in the tier list initially. It was the first ever, I'd say, tier list that I made, or rankings of the clowns in the WTA. I might be re-ranking some people. Rybakina might be one. I'll put it that way. I'd argue that the people who bet on Raducanu should still be one, but you can make an argument that she's definitely top 2. I'm going to have to reseed everybody, but Rybakina punting that match away kind of sums up the entire experience of rooting for Rybakina over the last 3 years or so. What a just meltdown. I got nothing else to add. Either way, though, nice job by Mboku getting the job done, and we'll see what happens in the final as she takes on Osaka in Montreal. Anyway, once again, not going to actually break down the men's matches because we are not done with those yet, as Shelton and Fritz are still on serve into the first set. But either way, time to move on into Cincinnati. So for the event, I'm going to mention the history of the event first. For the recent winners, you have seen a couple of, I'd say, very, very highly ranked players win over the years. You saw Sinner beat Tiafoe last year. Saw Djokovic beat Alcaraz in that crazy epic and all-time match out of 2 out of 3 sets. One of the best matches ever played. You saw Coric as the Cinderella run, who ended up beating Tsitsipas, which was a shocker even back then, but now especially in hindsight. How the hell did Coric do that? I think he was 100 to 1 to win the event that year, and Zverev beat Rublev the year prior. Now, for the event, there are a couple of big, I'd say, headlines and factoring in who's actually playing in the event. So in Toronto, we saw a bunch of no-shows. You had no Djokovic, you had no Draper, you had no Alcaraz, and you had no Sinner. So Djokovic and Draper will still be out for the event. However, you have Alcaraz and Sinner who are officially back. So we'll keep that in mind. But you're going to be getting 2 of the best players in the world. Defending champion is back in Sinner, and a former runner-up in the event is back as well with Alcaraz. So we'll see what happens, but keep in mind the 2 best players in the world are officially back in action. Now, getting into the actual quarters, we do have quarter odds for this. Starting off with the first quarter, this is the Sinner quarter. He's minus 350. You have Paul at 9 to 1, Ruud at 12 to 1, Musetti 12 to 1, Felix 16 to 1, Diallo 22 to 1. You have Makic 22 to 1, Tsitsipas 28 to 1, and Morozin at 28 to 1. I can mention more guys. There's no point. I'm picking Sinner. I mean, what exactly else am I supposed to do? Cincinnati is known for being one of the fastest-paced courts on the entire tour, and in the heat in Cincinnati, it can really get, I'd say, unplayable at times based on the stamina element, based on the heat, and also based on the actual speed of court. And the fact is, Sinner, with his firepower, is very tough to beat in these conditions, and I'm not going to pick against him. Now, he's minus 350 in the quarter, which I'm not going to bet, obviously, but at the same point, he's the only person I'm taking because I think everybody else is a waste of money. You could argue if you wanted to go for anybody else, you can make an argument for, once again, you're in a very weak quarter. You have Paul, who has not really played much recently, Ruud, who has come back from injury, who's not really known as being a great hardcourt player, Musetti, who I've actively mentioned on the podcast not being good on hardcourt, Felix is a head case, Diallo, who's kind of regressed a bit over the last couple of events, Makic looked pretty good against Opelka, did lose in 3. Don't trust him enough at that price. And Tsitsipas, enough said, not taking him either. So give me Sinner at 350. Not going to reinvent the wheel here. I think it's a decent spot for Sinner to kind of coast into the semis. We'll see what happens. But I see a question from Adam asking about whether it was smart or not for Alcaraz and Sinner to potentially sit for the U.S. Open. I think the counter argument would be that they wanted to get some hard court reps to just get some practice because you're looking at both guys not playing for a while since the grass slate. I think you're looking at both guys wanting to get adjusted to the hard court, and we'll go from there. Sinner, you could argue, really doesn't care about the rest because he won Cincinnati last year, and he ended up winning the U.S. Open anyway. So he should be fine. Alcaraz wants the reps anyway. You'd argue that why didn't they play Toronto instead? Toronto was spaced out. I think it was too long, to be honest, so I think they just decided we're going to skip it. We'll stay in America, and we'll play outdoors in Cincinnati. So it's the final tune-up event for the U.S. Open. But in reality, Sinner did the same thing last year. I'm not surprised he came back here to defend his title, and we'll see how they look in the U.S. Open moving forward. But either way, not exactly surprised that they came back here to Cincinnati after skipping Toronto. Now, for the event in itself, so once again, the first quarter, give me Sinner by himself. Nothing else to add. I think everybody else in the quarter is very weak quarter in general. Sinner might not drop a set before the semis, so give me Sinner minus 350, I guess, if I had to pick anybody to win that quarter. Moving on to what should be a more open quarter, the second quarter. Fritz is the favorite at 2 to 1. You have Rune at 650. Tiafoe's at 7 to 1. You have Fonseca at 750. You have Fekina at 8 to 1. Caboli 14 to 1. Humbert 14 to 1. Mickelson 14 to 1, Perricard 18 to 1, Sonego 25 to 1, Fernley 28 to 1, and if you want to go Moutet, you can get 28 to 1. If you want to go former champion, Coric is 40 to 1. You should not take that. He's been really bad. Anyway, the question here for the second quarter, do I think Fritz will be exhausted after making it what could be to the final in Toronto. We'll see. It's at least the semis, so we'll go from there. But the point is, Fritz is in a pretty tough scheduling spot, especially if he ends up beating Shelton tonight. So with that being the case, I think I'm going to pass on Fritz. The draw, I don't mind. I think his draw is okay. But it's a pretty tough turnaround with the heat element in Cincinnati. Of course, he does have a bye in the first round. Then either Chorich or Nava, he should win that too. Then probably Sonego, but maybe Fernley or Bergs. We'll see. Sonego can be tricky at times. But you're looking at Caboli or Fekina or maybe Fonseca. I have to toss out Caboli and Fekina and Fonseca because they're in the same quarter there of players. So with that being the case, same section. I don't really want to take any of them because they can all potentially make it out of that immediate section. So I'm going to pass on Fonseca, I'm going to pass on Fekina, and I'm going to pass on Caboli. On a separate note, I think Fonseca being a shorter price than Fekina at 8-1 and Caboli at 14-1 is insane, especially since Fonseca has to play an extra match. Fekina has a bye, and he's been really good. He made the final, of course, in DC. He ended up losing after a decent run in Toronto before losing to Rublev via retirement. But Fonseca having a cheaper price than Fekina and Caboli when he has to beat them both is insane. That's just an insane price on Fonseca. I can't take that, so I'll pass on those guys. But instead of going for Fritz, I'm going to go a bit bolder. I'm going to go with Rune at 650, who I know is a head case, and I understand that he had a pretty, I'd say, rough showing there in the last two sets against Pyron in Toronto. I like the draw. It's actually a very nice draw for Rune. So he has a bye, then Tabilo, who has not played in months, Safulin, who has not been good this year. On the other end, you have Moutet, McDonald, or Mickelson. I think Rune is better than all those guys, so I like the draw and the price. And he's in the immediate same, I'd say, half of the quarter as Tiafoe and Humbert. Humbert's kind of gone off the grid a bit. You haven't really seen him much lately. Tiafoe has been making some runs, not exactly that deep, but he has been involved, and I do think in Cincinnati, he should look decent. He made the final last year. I can see him with this path making a respectable run. But simply put, if I'm going to end up passing on Fritz because of fatigue, and I'm passing on the other, I'd say, decent price guys, the expected good players here because of the draw, give me the two players with good draws. Give me Rune at 650 and give me Tiafoe at 7-1. If Fritz ends up making it to the semifinals, I'll deal with it. But with the actual schedule, with him playing tonight, and maybe even tomorrow, we'll see. It's a bad spot. Give me Rune and Tiafoe as my two choices for the second quarter. Before we get into the other two quarters and the hour to win the event, reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor. Actually, a reminder, they're brought to you by the actual football previews that we're doing for Sports Game Podcast because they're back with the 32 NFL team previews, and they're also bringing back the phrase that pays. Each episode, they'll be giving out a key word of a 32-word phrase. Submit the phrase for a chance to win a $1,000 circa future. We're brought to you by Fantasy, though. They're doing Best Ball Mania, happening all summer long. 15 million prizes, 2 men first place. No waiver wire, no trade arguments. Best ball is the best way to play fantasy football. You can also use Underdog for pick'em entries for a chance to win 500 times your money. Sign up, though, for your new account with the code SGPN. You get a special pick and first time offer up to $1K in bonus cash. Our fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by MyBookie.ag because we're able in a ton of locations use them to bet on baseball, WNBA, tennis, golf, and of course football futures. You can also use them with crypto for fast payouts and easy deposits. Sign up though for your new account. Use code SGPN to get 100% of match up to 1K. Terms and conditions apply. MyBookie.ag promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the first two quarters in Cincinnati. Time to keep it rolling with the third quarter. So this is going to be the Zverev quarter. We know officially that Zverev is done in Toronto, so at least he gets an extra day or so after choking the match away against Khachanov. I'll get into that tomorrow, but still. Zverev is here, so is Shelton at 333. So same thing with Fritz. He might have to also play on Thursday, then go to Cincinnati. It's not a great spot, so keep that in mind. You have Medvedev at 4-1. You have Leheshka at 9-1. You have Khachanov at 9-1. Also a bad spot for him because he's in the final on Thursday. You have Fees at 12-1. You have Monfils, who's been really bad lately, at plus 2,000. Might be the final time he's actually playing in Cincinnati. You have Nishikori, who's back, 25-1. Brooksby, 25-1. Nakashima, 25-1. You get the point. So for the favorites here, like the previous quarter, I do think it is very, very difficult to fully trust the fitness of Zverev and Shelton. Not to mention the fact that Zverev's been a serious pain in the ass with the amount of passiveness in his game and just the unwillingness to pull the trigger. it is just so painful to watch him play. He's become a worse version of Andy Murray, and you could make a serious argument that he's one of the most boring players on tour right now. It is just a grind to watch him play. Not even him playing, just watching him play. It is an eyesore at times. And we saw that in the late stages of that third set against Khachanov. Not too much detail. He had some chances, he choked again. Now, Shelton, we'll see how he looks here. The court speed should benefit him and Zverev. Zverev lost the marathon against Sinner in the semis last year in Cincinnati. The problem is I don't trust anybody else in this quarter. Medvedev's been terrible for the last couple of years, and the fact is he's at 4-1. I can't take that because he's not won a title in basically 3 years, so I can't back him. His draw's not bad. Lehechka's intriguing. If you think Lehechka can beat Medvedev, that's an option. So you can go with him potentially as a guy who could make a deep run. Now, I actually like the Shelton draw, assuming he's not totally exhausted and punts the event in preparation for the U.S. Open. I do think if I had to go for pricing, it's really tough to find value because I think Zverev, with his lack of, I'd say, mental toughness, can be annoying to deal with. I like the draw, though. I think he's a bad matchup for Nakashima. Then again, I thought he'd be a bad matchup for Khachanov. Khachanov beat him, so what do I know? But I do think you're looking at two guys who are favored that I will fade in this quarter. So as you can tell, I'm going to go for a bit of a bolder stance for the quarter because I really don't like the scheduling spot for Zverev and for Shelton. So instead, I'm going to go a bit more creative for my options. Now, because of that, I'm skipping Zverev and I'm skipping Shelton. If they end up making it, good for them. I don't see the value on the price. So instead, give me Lehechka at 9-1, who you could argue should have beaten Fritz in Toronto. But the serve was very, very good, and the courts play fast here. There's a chance he just serve bots his way into making a very good run, and I don't mind the draw. I think he can beat Medvedev, and Medvedev can lose to Moutet on hard court, and he can lose to Papiron on hard court. Why can't Lehechka beat him? That's kind of my point. So I'll go for Lehechka at 9-1. He's in the same immediate section as Shelton as well. So Shelton, if he ends up dropping out, I don't think it's going to happen, but if he does, that opens up an even better opportunity for Lehechka to make a deep run. I'll take him at 9-1, though, as my first choice. For the second choice, I'm skipping Zverev and Shelton and Medvedev and Khachanov. Give me Fees at 12-1. You know what? He played a little bit in Toronto. I thought he looked okay. Didn't really make a deep run by any means, but I do think his talent level is undeniable. And if he does find a good form, I think he can make some noise. Now, he ended up beating Busta in straight sets, lost to Lehechka in 3. No shame in that. Lehechka almost beat Fritz. So I think that he actually played pretty well. I like the price, though, at 12-1. I think Fees for the talent is definitely, I'd say, a dangerous candidate to go for a deep run. He's in the immediate section as Khachanov, who maybe drops out. Who knows? He's also in the same half as Zverev, who also might drop out. Who knows? So there's a chance that he gets a compromised Khachanov or Zverev, or maybe one of the two of them or both drop out, and suddenly Fees has a very open section in his quarter. But 12-1, I like. I do think it's a very open quarter if you're picking fatigue to play a factor. With the really dumb schedule with Toronto and Cincinnati overlapping, I think it's just a really bad spot for Zverev, for Shelton, for Fritz, and for Khachanov. So I'm going to pass on those guys. So that's kind of my thoughts for this one. Andrew's asking when I'm going to learn to not take Zverev. I'm not taking him now, so we're starting somewhere. Either way, though, a point is I am going to go with those two guys for the third quarter. Moving on to the fourth quarter. This is the Alcaraz quarter. He's minus 225, so he's not as big a favorite as Sinner, but he's still a big favorite. You have de Minaur at 550. You have Rublev at 11-1. Mensik 12-1, who did win a 1,000 title on hard court this year in Miami. You have Shapo at 20-1. Papiron at 22-1. Greek Sport 25-1. Opelka 28-1. Tien 28-1. You kind of get the point. So Alcaraz has not played for a while. Do I care? No, not at all. I think Alcaraz has an easy quarter. I think he has more firepower by far than de Minaur, which is why he's been able to beat de Minaur in almost every head-to-head meeting. But we saw him make it all the way to the Wimbledon final. He lost to Sinner, hasn't played since. You could argue that he might be rusty. That's fine. I think his immediate draw is, once again, manageable enough for him to survive a couple of rounds. He has Bellucci or De Zoomer in the second round after the bye. Sure, that's an easy win. Might have Greek Sport. Could be Medjedovic, though, or Kovacevic. Not exactly the easiest section for those guys. But Alcaraz should really coast. You could argue that Mensik could end up losing to Quinn, maybe, or Kekmanovic in the second round. Wouldn't shock me either. We know Shapo's a head case. I'm really not impressed by anybody in this quarter, and I need a bigger price on Dimonauer when he's in the same section as Alcaraz. So give me Alcaraz at minus 225. Not going to reinvent the wheel here. I think it's pretty chalky. I'll go with those, once again, outrights for the quarters. I'll go with Sinner by himself. I'll go with Alcaraz by himself. Give me Rune at 650. Tiafoe at 7-1 for the second quarter. Third quarter, though, give me Leheshka at 9-1 and give me Fees at 12-1. Anyway, time to move on to the actual outrights to win the event. So starting off with the odds for the event itself, you have what should be a pretty, once again, straightforward event based on who's here. You have two massive favorites, and that's it. You have Sinner at even money. You have Alcaraz at 175. Everybody else is 16-1 or higher. So when we talk constantly about how much better Sinner and Alcaraz are than everybody else on tour, once again, Alcaraz is 175. Everybody else is 16-1 or higher. So you're looking at Zverev at 16-1, Fritz at 16-1, Shelton at 25-1. So the immediate semifinalists are the three other shortest odds to win the event. I'm passing on all of them, obviously based on spot. You have Dimonauer at 28-1, whose game I think is going to struggle on the fast-paced courts here at Cincinnati. I just don't think he has the firepower to match the other elite players on tour that he's going to have to deal with, so I'm going to pass on him there. Medvedev, no chance in hell. Paul's at 50-1, not going to take him either. Leheshka, could be interesting, but no. Mensik 65-1, no. Rune 65-1. If he's in form, maybe, but I don't trust Rune at all. I'll pass there. Rublev, no chance in hell. Gashanov 80-1, no. Fonseca 80-1, what an insane price. You have Tiafoe at 80-1 as well, defending finalist. You have Fekina at 100-1, Tsitsipas 100-1. You kind of get where I'm going here. I don't like anybody besides the two favorites to win the event. I feel like it's an event where I'm picking Sinner or Alcaraz to take care of business on hard court. Sinner did it last year. He had a scare against Zverev. Besides that, he kind of coasted. I see a pretty similar story. I see Sinner at 120, which I like. I think it's a good price on Bet365. Alcaraz, though, has an extreme rogue line on, it was FanDuel, I believe. They had Alcaraz at 270, a free extra dollar on Alcaraz outright. Sure, it's like 170 market wide, or 2-1. If you want to give me 270, I'll take it. So I think I'm going to go with those two guys. If I had to go for any long shot, anybody that could maybe make some noise, I think you can make an argument for maybe Rune or for maybe even Fees at 100-1. Am I taking either of those guys? Hell no. If Fees wins the quarter at 12-1, I'll be thrilled, and I'll have no regrets about avoiding him for the actual event. Same with Rune at 650. But for the sake of a hardcore 1,000 event, when you're looking at the other main guys being extremely tired from the previous 1,000 event last week and this week, give me the two favorites. Not going to reinvent the wheel here. Give me Sinner at 120, Alcaraz at 270. The same plan as Wimbledon. Give me the two chalky favorites. Ignore everybody else, and hopefully we collect our money at the end of the event. I got nothing else to add, though. I'll go for that. I see some questions here from Rex and from Adam. So Rex asked if I ever parlay quarters. The truth is I used to. The problem is finding books that actually let you do that in New York, because Bet365 is not legal in New York, so I can't use it. DraftKings used to let me parlay quarter once again plays. The problem is I've been limited so hard on DraftKings. My max bet's like $2 if I try to parlay quarters. So, Rex, the answer is no. I would want to, but I can't, because DraftKings removed that privilege from me by limiting me to oblivion. So no, I can't actually parlay quarters. I would, if you want to go Sinner and Alcaraz in a parlay together, I would recommend it. I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I encourage it, but I personally can't do that because my books don't let me do it in New York. So there we go. I see Adam asking about Toronto with the scheduling. Toronto extended the tournament. They added more days off, which is why you saw 2 quarters in one day, 2 quarters the day after, and that's why you had a pretty weird schedule going on. So Toronto tried to experiment to elongate the event, and because of that, they sabotaged the actual schedule for Cincinnati. And because of that, you have a bunch of players who opted out because they want to play Cincinnati too, and you're kind of picking one or the other. So Toronto kind of sabotaged themselves by extending the length of the actual event by adding more days off, which in hindsight was really, really dumb. But anyway, that's why a lot of people skip Toronto and why they're going ahead to Cincinnati. Anyway, time to move on into the Lock and Dog picks for the first round. Before we get into the Lock and Dog picks, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Circa, because they have a couple contests in the NFL season. There's Circa Million, Circa Survivor, Circa Rendissimo, over $20 million in guaranteed prizes. They also, once again, are going to be a really, really nice hotel to stay at. If you want to check out the hotel, you can get a nice 15% off your stay at Circa with the code SGP15. And a reminder that SGPN's having a solid get-together with some fans at Circa Contest Weekend, August 21st, 23rd, for an amazing weekend, including live shows and open bars. So once again, check out Circa because SGPN guys will be there from the 21st to 23rd. Also, check out the actual contest with Circa. And a reminder, the contest is open to everyone. Sign up in Nevada, play from anywhere with the help of SGPN's official proxy, and follow contest.com. Use code SGP, $50 off your proxy fees. We're also brought to you by Rhythm because they have a brand new, once again, name for power trends. They have smart signals, and they're crushing it with the smart signals, and they are the best props the house model has to offer. So check out the baseball and the WNBA props. The MLB smart signals have been crushing it, especially on a couple of players. They have Mike Trout and Giancarlo Stanton. Their combined unders are 14-0 when the smart signals recommend them. So take the unders when they recommend them. And a reminder for WNBA, the smart signals since the All-Star break are 27-16 with an ROI of 23.36%. So check out the power trends, the smart signals on Rhythm. And a reminder, you could also download the app, check out the smart signals, and start betting smarter. You could also get a nice free trial for a week with SGPN because you can use the link sportsgambling's.com Rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the outrights for Cincinnati. Time to move on into the Lock and Dog picks. Now, for the Lock and Dog, actually, I'm going to go with a couple parlays for the show. I have a bankroll builder basically for each, but one is a minus price, one's a plus money price. First one, you shop around, you can find, once again, a pretty expensive price compared to what I found. So I'm going to go with the first parlay, which is Arnaldi, parlayed with Opelka. Just the two money lines, not going to get too creative. It's minus 137 on DraftKings. It was minus 160 on FanDuel, so once again, shop around. So Arnaldi's taking on Bonzi, and he's like minus 220, minus 200. I liked Arnaldi. I didn't want to lay $2, so I found a parlay piece to reduce the juice. Bonzi has been horrible lately. He's lost 5 of his last 6, and on top of that, he's been really bad on hardcourt. He's actually 1-8 in his last 9 hardcourt matches. So Bonzi's kind of an auto-fade territory. Historically, he's been quite bad in outdoor hardcourt events. So maybe he retires because of the overall heat. We'll see. Arnaldi, though, has been pretty good recently. He's 3-2 in his last 5 hardcourt matches, but the 2 losses made sense. He lost to Fritz and Zverev. Lost to Zverev in 3 sets earlier in Toronto. No shame in that. His 2 losses were to top 5, top 10 guys in the world. I'll excuse that. He's beating the guys he should beat. Think he'll beat Bonzi in this one, so I'll take him there on the money line. Now, as for Opelka, massive favorite. He's about minus 650, give or take, against Delian. Delian is, by definition, a clay specialist. He can't serve, simply put. As bad as Opelka's return game is, I think he will find some breaks potentially in this matchup. And, of course, with these court speeds in Cincinnati, I expect to see Opelka just bombing serves against Delian. Now, Delian knows he's a clay specialist. That's why he plays a lot of clay challengers. He basically skipped the grass season and the hardcourt season. He's played 1 hardcourt match since the Australian Open, which was last week, actually, in Toronto, and Morozin killed him. He lost 6-2, 6-2. Now, Opelka, once again, great server. He lost to Tien, but he won a couple rounds in Toronto, ended up beating Hoffner, ended up beating drawing a blank on who else he beat Makic in 3. The point is he's been good enough to beat a clay specialist on one of the fastest-paced courts on tour for the actual event here in the upcoming week. I think it's a good spot to take Opelka money line with the Arnaldi money line, and I'll take those 2 picks at minus 137 as the parlay on DraftKings, my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go with Goffin money line with Fonseca money line at plus 106. So this one, I believe, was also on DraftKings. It might have been on Bet Rivers, actually. But the point is, it's plus money to shop around. Baez, though, is the opponent for Goffin, who is definitely a clay specialist. In fact, you might have forgotten how bad he's been on hard court. Baez in his last 11 hard court matches is 0-11. 0-11 on hard court, and he also has not played a hard court match since March, so he knows he's a clay guy. He plays a lot of clay events. The point is, he's been really, really bad on hard court, and he's kind of an auto fade. Goffin has not been in great form recently, but we know that he's still a veteran. He's still a solid hard court player. If you want to go based on history, he's played this event a lot. I believe he's 19-10 lifetime in Cincinnati, so he's familiar with the courts here. I think he'll play pretty well. Baez, though, is an auto fade. I'll fade him in the spot at a pretty decent price. Goffin money line, though, is minus 220. So I'll once again leave myself room for error in case Goffin punts a set away and you get a marathon on your hands. Give me the money line. I'll dare Baez to win his first hard court match, I believe, all year. He has not won a hard court match in a long time, so keep that in mind. As for Fonseca, we saw him lose to Schoolcat in his first hard court match post-Wimbledon. I'm fine with it. His first match back, Schoolcat was in good form. He ended up losing. Fonseca, though, we know is a good hard court player. We saw him beat Rublev in the Australian Open. We saw him win the next-gen title as well. He's 13-5 straight up on hard court this season. Boo, though, has really not been that great on hard court for a hard court specialist. He is really not doing that well. He is 7-9 in his last 16 hard court matches. So I think you're looking at a spot where even though Boo's been playing more hard court events recently, I think the pace of the court should help Fonseca with the forehand, of course. Not going to overreact too much to the loss to Schoolcat. He was adjusting to a new surface. Didn't work out. Schoolcat served well. Boo has been pretty up and down all year, and I think Fonseca is, objectively speaking, the better player. He's minus 250. I don't want to lay that. So instead, I'll go for the parlay with Goffin and Fonseca moneyline as my two pick for the dog. So once again, the plays for the show in Cincinnati, the lock's going to be on Arnaldi and Opelka moneyline as a parlay at minus 137. For the dog, give me the Goffin moneyline and Fonseca moneyline at plus 106, so two pick parlay as well. A reminder back once again tomorrow morning to get into the final in Toronto. So we'll see what happens in the semifinal matchup between Shelton and Fritz happening right now. Either way, though, once again, I hopefully enjoyed the show. Once again, thank you for stopping by the comment section, and hopefully you've enjoyed the content over the, I don't know how long you've been tuning to the podcast. Hopefully you enjoy the show. Either way, though, a point is that's going to wrap it up. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bats. Bye, everyone.